Thank you. Okay, so quick summary. The pasuk says they used to remove all illness, and then the pasuk concludes, and all evil disease of Mitzrayim I will not place upon you. There's two kinds of refuah. A refuah that removes the illness, and then there's the second refuah to begin with. There's no illness. Preventative medicine that I would always encourage. You see this by the dollars. When someone would say he's a doctor, etc., so they would give a bracha that the work should be preventative. And what's this in Avodah? This in Avodah is tzaddikim and Avodah sabali tshuva. Tshuva is there is illness and it's removed, but Avodah tzaddikim t'chatchila there's no illness. Shleichotem miyom avin never sin. To understand this deeper and also to understand the whole unit of illness, so the source of all chayli down here is really it's a medical thing. The source of all illness is a pining for life. And what's that? Chaylas ava, lovesick, to unite with the likus. So the desire is so strong that the person falls ill. Now the source of that, l'mayla in Atzilus, is Sfiras HaMalchus. Sfiras HaMalchus, l'mayla zemercha choved v'lo yidoy. Koved goes HaMalchus. So koved, the deeper taichis, the simple taichis is a mercha choved. He or we will sing your praise, your glory. Here the taichis that the koved itself is singing. Koved goes a malchus. So malchus is singing, v'lo yidem, and not silent in her desire. The words of desire, the lower oir to unite with the higher oir. It calls out to the higher oir and is not silenced. V'lo yidem. So this is the longing of Sfiras HaMalchus. So the Medrash says that there are three longings, and one of them is the teshuka of the longing of the wife to her husband. What's that inyan? It explains in Proteus that ish v'isha, the common letters are ish, and ish is fire, is longing. So she is longing to unite with him. It's the hay, which is Malchus, seeks to unite with Yud, Chachma, with the Sfiras L'mayla. And that's also the Inyan who says of the longing of the white fire, Eish Chayla, to the Eish Lavana, the black fire to the white fire, which seems to be a reference. To the black letters written. They wish to show Moishe when he dictated the Torah. Moishe saw a vision of black letters written on black fire on white fire. And that's the Inyan of Malchus as longing. The black letters are longing to unite, as it were the black, as he explains now, Bira Inyan, to the white, which represents relatively bleakville boundlessness. In between the lines, right? What's in between the lines is more than the words themselves. The person speaks. That's the whole art of listening, is to be able to hear what the person is saying in between the words, between the letters. Much more is expressed there, which can't be expressed in words, of the person in their silence in between, than in the actual words and letters that they choose. Akopanim, the Nekuda here is that the black fire, the Eish Chayra, Malchus, is longing to unite with Eish Levan. So this he's going to explain. So again, the context here is that Chayli Lamata, its source is Chaylas Ava, and that itself comes from the very dynamic, the very makeup of Ishtalshalos. Bira Inyan, the explanation is as follows. In the Ksiv, the Pasuk says, how did they wish to create the world? What was the Seder? By Erev, by Yivoker, first Erev and then Boker. From Razal, and the Gemara says we encountered this, Gemara in Shabbos, that one of the Amoraim was asked, he was in a good frame of mind, and so the Talmud, a fellow Amora, saw that now's the time to ask questions, and he asked all these questions about the natures of animals. Obviously, the Pnimius is deep in Yonim, as we're going to see over here. One of the questions was, he asked, why did the rams go in front of the ewes, in front of the female sheep? Why is it the nature that the male go in front? And he answered, they follow the nature of the world, that the beginning first was an evening, dark, and then light. The rams are generally darker, and the ewes, the female, are white. So what do we see? That B'riyasa Shel Olam is Reisha Chasheichan Hada Nohede. What does the Gemara mean? Ki B'riyasa Shel Olam, the creation of the world, but by that the Gemara means, and call it Seder Ishtalshalos, not just our physical world, but the whole emergence of Ishtalshalos starts with darkness and then there's light. Meaning, the whole beginning of Ishtalshalos is only possible because of the tzimtzum, the siluk, and the quote unquote, we'll soon address this, removal of the oil of the light, this is the lashon of the ''tשכ" in explaining the process of creation. Then beginning the light filled the makom hacholol. Then the Eibishter removed the light. That's the great tzimtzum. And what remains is letters, v'roshim, and a trace, an impression of the light. What does this mean? We'll explain. So this is the inyan of the beginning, is dark, that's the tzimtzum. The Hadanohir then is light. Then is after the tzimtzum, the kav, literally the line of the likus is projected from higher than the tzimtzum, through the tzimtzum, into the makom cholol, creating a line, gradation, whole levels of the likus, whole seder ishtalshalos. Now he elaborates a little bit further. So what's left after the siluk of the oil of the gilui? Obviously, what are we talking about? We're talking here about the Eibishter. So the Eibishter is concealing his revelation or removing it. He didn't leave. So what's happened? Well, obviously he hasn't left. There's less asar upon him, and there's no place void of him and cannot be. So what's left is the koyach hagvul. In fact, that's what causes the eclipse of the koyach of the oil. It's not that his presence is removed, chas v'shalom. It's the revelation of his presence. Tzimtzum not kipshuta, God forbid. Which as the Alter addresses in Tanya, which now, as a result of Tanya, nobody entertains. But it was a shitta, there are 4 shittas. It was a shitta that tzimtzum kipshuta, not just in the oil, but in the Eibishter himself, removed himself. Now the Rebbe's big chiddush is that it's not kipshuta, and it's not even in the mo'er, in atzmos, the whole thing is in the oil. Yes, gilui, not gilui. But the presence is constant throughout, unchanging. So, meaning, again, back into the words of the Maamor, in the Oisius v'Haroshim. So what's left are Oisius. What's Oisius? Oisius, that's the black letters. Oisius are articulated kalim, articulated communication. Oisius v'Haroshim. And the Roshim means the trace of the effect, to explain this also, what the Roshim is, of the Gilui. So, but that's only a Roshim is left of the Gilui. The overt Gilui is no longer. In simple language, it's not like God's revelation is impossible thereafter, and is not part of the world of Gvul. The world of Gvul still remains bound up, but the world of Bli Gvul, in fact, longs for it. That's the ''tשכ" as he goes on to explain. So this is the inyan of, so again, this is the inyan of the first stage of Ishtalshalos, his darkness. He elaborates ki be'inyan oides v'kelim. So the inyan of oides and kelim, what's oides and kelim? The Eibishter's desire, chosen desire to express himself and to contain his revelation. That's oides and kelim. So in Harosh Veheisir, this very first primal stage in the emergence of Ishtalshalos, which begins with the Roshim and the Oisius, Hema Kelim, that's Kelim, that's the Kelim, which means the finite, will emerge later as descriptive, finite expressions of Likus. Shenyonim Helen, now like a Keli conceals what's in it. So too, the Keich HaGvul conceals the Pshitos of a Likus, the Bligvul. Even more detail, important detail now coming. The Kelim don't come from somewhere else. There are no two sources. The Kelim come from the Oir, meaning from Hashem's revelation. Of course, the Oir itself comes from the Moir, the luminary. Sometimes, like here in this Maamor, we're not differentiating between the Moir and Atzmos, even though there is a differentiation, because Moir already implies Oir, so it's already a decision, it's already a tzimtzum, as it were. But from Klali, Moir, the luminary, the source. So he's saying that the Oir, that the Kelim come from the Oir, and therefore from the Moir. So they come from the same source. So how do they emerge? In other words, the Eibishter Hashem sheyesh lo koach bebilti bal gvul, yesh lo koach begvul. Hashem is the shleimus, total shleimus, and can reveal, not reveal, infinite, finite. It's all part of his chosen desire to reveal himself. It's all him. So the Keli in the Seder, there's a logic to the way things emerge by divine design, so that we should understand it, emulate it, and have a relationship with Hashem. So the Keli is there in a very latent potential form. They only emerge, the Keich HaGvul only emerges with the eclipse, as it were, of the Bligvul, of the infinite light. And then what's left in terms of whose presence is felt, not Hashem's infinite revelation. What's felt is his Keich HaGvul. That's the Kelim. So the Ishavos is from the Siluk, V'Yonim Helem. And what is Siluk? And what's in Yonim of the Kelim? Helem, to conceal. More elaboration. The Haino, meaning, to say, not in Mayos, did I say that? Yeah, even though that the way the Kelim emerge above Ein, the Safas Aguf Lamata, is unlike, for example, the Guf, which is a Keli to the Neshama down here. It's not the same. The body's creation doesn't come from the Neshama. So even though that's the way it is down here, it's not the way it is there. That's the Imayos. Avalamayla, Arisavas Hagufa is the creation, the emergence of the body of Valikus, Haina Kelim. It's not independent of the Oir, like the Sham and Guf down here, but rather it's from the Oir itself. As we said, it's the Siluk of the Oir. The Oir carried, the Eibishter's revelation, the Chatchila carried his desire to reveal and conceal. But the Oir itself, the power of concealment is, of course, potential, only latent when there's revelation. When the revelation is removed, as it were, eclipsed, what's there? The Eibishter's Keich HaGvul. So the Pasuk says, and you create all of them, we say every day. So the part of this says, not only you enliven, but you bring it to existence. So he's saying that the Ata, you, the Eibishter, in your revelation, so you're bringing into existence everything, including the Keich HaGvul, Choshech, the Hell. Having said all of this, nonetheless, and but you cannot compare the nature of the emergence of the creation of the kelim to the light that comes from the shemesh, the mo'er, the rays that come from the luminary, from the mo'er. Namely, the rays come because the sun is not being concealed. The mo'er is being expressed. True El Shabbat, the '''', even there the oil has to be filtered through the sheath around the sun. So it's through a compromised giloy, but there's still a giloy. Not the etzem mamash, it's giloy, it's oil. It's not through a nartek, through a veil, as it were, but rather mehelim mesilak oil. Kelim emerge when there's no revelation, removal of the giloy. Very radical. It's a radical process, but still, it doesn't come from anywhere else other than the oil itself, that latently the Koach HaGvul is present and emerges when the oil, the Koach HaBlikvul, is removed and the Koach HaGvul dominates. Conclusion, basically you got it clear. Yeah, more or less. So the conclusion for this is the Indian that the beginning says the Zohar, the beginning, the first process of creation before Ishtalshalos, from which Ishtalshalos emerges, the Kav. So the beginning is Choshech. The Indian, and now the second part of the phrase, the Hod, the Noir, and then it comes light. Now, post-Tzimtzum, the Eibishter now projects in and through the Tzimtzum Oir. Let's examine that. The Kav, the light, is drawn and affected by the Tzimtzum. That's the whole point, that the Oir should be a kind of Oir that the further it progresses, the more finite it becomes. Sholachenu kav kotzer, therefore, in the words of the Kabbalah, it's a narrow line. It's not a boundless effusion of light. It's a projected light, like a laser beam. And the whole point is to illuminate the tzimtzum, the darkness that has ensued now as a result of the siluk oir of the Eibishter removing his revealed presence. Therefore, it's called dark fire. Meaning to say, even though the kav is light, is giloy, it's called dark fire, dark light. Since its point is to engage, not a transcendent, it's to be nimshach and engage the darkness and the dark. Shachris is, cheshach means black, really, the darkness and the blackness of the tzimtzum. That's why it's called a dark or a black fire, because what's its inyan is to illuminate and engage that darkness. Now, to invoke terms we're all familiar with, the so this is a mamale. This is a level that is finite and graded and fills and animates all the levels of creation. That's the summary. So the summary of Eish Shcheira is Eira Mamale, that is post Tzimtzum. The Kav that is post Tzimtzum. But the white fire, this is the transcendent over. It's a level which is higher than Tzimtzum, with pure Blikvul. Higher than Tzimtzum. The Av Now, question and answer. The whole point is that the tzimtzum affected it's the eclipse of this oil. So why we just how do we reconcile that which was just said, that it's completely hiding the tzimtzum? That's what the tzimtzum played on, as it were. How we say Veheisir is unaffected. So we'll say the Oisius now, maybe we'll revisit it tomorrow. How do you do it? It's known. The tzimtzum doesn't affect the oil itself. Just get the word straight. The effect of the tzimtzum is its revelation in the quote-unquote vacuum. Let's read the words. At the beginning, his presence was felt, literally spread. And the tzimtzum affects that it should be illuminated. Like I said earlier, the four shittas in tzimtzum, the Alterebes Chiddush that she's referring to is that A, the tzimtzum is only in the oil, and B, not kipshuta. Even in the oil. Koyach HaBligvul remains, in other words, it's just lost on us. But the oil itself, the presence of the Eibishter's shleimus of Koyach HaGvul, Koyach HaBligvul, it's all there. Just, we don't experience it, but it's uncompromised. Okay, let's just finish the ois. There's a huge gap between the two. That's how we experience Gvul, and Eish Levana is Veheisir Bligvul, and not at present, but completely lost on us. Since in Gilui, there's no Gilui, so the net result is that the Eish Chayra, the black fire, Malchus, Malakalamin, factored into creation is the desire and longing to connect to Eish Levana, which in simple language means a desire for wholeness. Because all of this fracturization is an imposition, as it were. It's one Indian, it's one Eibishter. Vul, Bligvul, it's all him. Eish Levana, Eish Chayra. But in terms of experience, there's this great disparity. So there's this natural sense of I'm incomplete. I'm not whole. I'm not expressing the emes in my finitude. There's the Bligvul, there's the Eish Levana, which is really part of who I am, inseparably. So all of creation, to the very outset, is created with a sense of a longing for wholeness, to be complete. This is the tzedakah of Malchus, to unite with Zoh, to be complete, to be whole. This is the inyan b'pnimius, that the husband and wife to begin with, the two halves of neshama, which means, and then they separate. What's the inyan? That l'mayla mitzad the Eibishter Gvul and Bligvul is all one. It's all him. It's all one inyan. It's one truth. But then it separates. So the division of this creates, inherent in that is this longing for wholeness, to be united again. And she has it more than him. We don't see actually that by Zoh there's this desire to unite with Malchus. Malchus only is ma'odah that later. He's a loner, he can be by himself. But she, the whole Metzius is Malchus, the desire to be whole, because Malchus recognizes and feels its own Gvul and the deep sense of this is only part of the truth. Hashem is manifested in Bli Gvul and Gvul. Therein lies the Gilui Ha'etzem, in the fusion of both. Therefore, she longs to be united with him. Pasha Begashmius, as Adam and Chava were created, first there was Adam alone. It's the Gilui Oir, and then comes Chava. But when Chava comes into the to create. She's created lechatchila, one with him, and then separated. So from then on, Vel Isha Chakosech, that's the pasuk that Medrash brings. Your desire will be for your husband. That's through the tzimtzum, the chet, which is replayed again in Gan Eden, that separation and banishment and division. Forever thereafter is the longing to be whole again, the longing to be complete, embodied by Chava, Isha, Malchus, Knesset, Yisrael, all of these different levels of the same truth. Are we kind of clear? Yeah.